My name is Mara. I'm 28 years old, living in Chicago and working as a brand strategist at one of the biggest firms in the city. I never expected that an average Tuesday morning meeting would flip my entire life upside down. One moment, I was standing in front of executives, running through sleek campaign slides, pointing out market gaps and growth opportunities. The next, my vision dimmed, pain exploded through my head like a lightning strike, and everything went black. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital room, fluorescent lights buzzing above me, wires and machines crowding my bedside. A doctor approached, expression measured, clipboard in hand. He said, "We called your emergency contacts. Your parents promised they'd come." His voice faltered. "But they haven't shown." I stared at him, blank. Even in that moment, half-drugged, terrified, some part of me wasn't surprised. Because deep down, I already knew how little I mattered to them. If you've ever felt abandoned by people who were supposed to care, then you already understand this story. Growing up, we looked like a postcard-perfect family. Suburban house outside Boston, holiday photos framed in the hallway, a father who ran a respected architecture firm, a mother who taught elementary school, and 2 daughters, my older sister, Alicia, and me. Alicia was 3 years older, smarter, prettier, endlessly praised. She was the golden child, and I was the afterthought. Dad used to say, "Look at Alicia's project, first place again. Mara, why can't you try like her?" He barely glanced at mine. My grades weren't bad. I had a 3.8 GPA, joined debate, and volunteered at the shelter. But nothing ever stood up against Alicia's 4 and student presidency. Even when I brought home an A, my mom would sigh, "Your sister never had these problems. Mara just needs to apply herself." By the time my 16th birthday came, they had already left me behind. Literally. They drove 6 hours to attend Alicia's sorority event instead of celebrating with me. My party was a leftover grocery store cake and a note promising to celebrate later. We never did. At graduation, they smiled for pictures, but dinner afterward was all about Alicia's engagement to her wealthy fiancé. When I told them I was heading to Northwestern University in Chicago, Mom frowned and said, "It's so far. Alicia stayed close to home." Dad muttered, "Well, at least it's a decent school. Not Princeton, but still." That's why I left. Chicago was my escape route, a city where I could finally live without being measured against her. Alicia stayed close, married, had perfect kids, built the exact carbon copy life my parents adored. Their phone calls to me became shorter and shorter, always circling back to, "When will you settle down, Mara? Your clock is ticking." The last holiday I spent with them sealed everything. They had turned my old bedroom into a playroom for Alicia's kids without warning me. I ended up sleeping in the cold basement pullout. At dinner, I tried to share that I had been promoted, but Dad just glanced at his watch and asked if anyone wanted more turkey. Later, I saw Alicia tag me in a photo captioned, "Family Complete," except I wasn't even in it. So I gave up. I stopped chasing their approval. Calls reduced to obligatory holidays, the occasional text. I built my own life in Chicago, an apartment filled with art, a handful of friends who actually noticed when I walked into a room, a career I could be proud of. Still, sometimes the silence from my family ached, but I pushed it away, pouring myself deeper into work. That's what led me here. 6 months of grinding through impossible deadlines, skipping meals, living on caffeine and painkillers, ignoring headaches that grew sharper every day. I was handling a massive account, Northridge Athletics, a rebrand that could earn me a director title. It meant everything. So I worked 16-hour days, forcing myself to ignore the dizziness, the blurred vision, the nights I couldn't sleep. On the morning of the big pitch, I doubled my medication, plastered on makeup to hide how pale I looked, and told myself I could push through. 15 minutes into my presentation, though, the world tilted sideways. Faces melted into blur. A knife of pain pierced my skull. I remember gripping the table, mumbling words that didn't sound like mine, reaching for water, and then nothing. Next thing, I was waking to sirens, oxygen masks, and paramedics yelling numbers I didn't understand. My colleague Riley, one of the few real friends I had at the firm, was at my side, panic on her face. Then darkness again. When I woke properly, I was already in the hospital. The doctor, Dr. Chen, explained, severe exhaustion, dehydration, but we're concerned there's something more. They were running tests. I asked about work, about the campaign. She shook her head. No work, not for a while. We've contacted your parents. They said they'd come. Her tone said the rest. They hadn't. Of course not. Why would they? I tried to brush it off. Maybe the distance was too much. Maybe they were busy. But when Riley returned later with pajamas, a charger, even a book from my nightstand, the contrast nearly broke me. Here was someone I'd known only months bringing comfort, and my parents, silence. The headaches weren't just stress. After more tests, Dr. Chen and a neurologist returned with careful words. There's pressure inside your skull. We need an MRI. It might be inflammation. Or a mass. My heart iced over. A tumor, that's what they weren't saying. Have my parents been updated? I asked. The doctor softened her voice. We called again this morning. Your father said they're making arrangements for a 2-hour flight. That night, I stared at the ceiling while machines beeped around me, realizing I might be facing brain surgery completely alone. The next morning's MRI was torture. The claustrophobic machine, the fear pounding harder than the noise. Hours stretched as I waited. My phone stayed silent. No calls from Boston. When I finally gave in and opened social media, the notification hit me like a punch. Alicia tagged you in a post. I shouldn't have clicked, but I did. The photo, my parents, Alicia, her husband, her kids, all smiling in matching t-shirts at a theme park. Caption, family day without the drama, sometimes smaller is better. I sat there, IV in my arm, waiting for results that could change my life, while they were literally celebrating my absence. Without the drama, meaning me. I put the phone face down. I refused to cry. I refused to let them win. That evening, Dr. Patel finally entered with the results. He sat beside me. There's a tumor in your right frontal lobe. It's likely benign, but it's pressing on your brain. It needs surgery. Brain surgery, at 28, alone. They explained the risks, the procedure, the recovery. I nodded mechanically, numb. When they asked if someone could be called to be with me, I said no. Not my parents. Not Alicia. They'd already made their choice. But as the night nurse, Jenna, checked my IV, she said something that stuck. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's who shows up when no one else does. We've got you. She was right. Because the next day, Riley showed up again, taking time off work, dropping snacks and silly magazines at my bedside. She even told the volunteer filling out my pre-surgery forms, list me as her emergency contact. That simple act nearly made me break. The night before surgery, Jenna gave me a list of patients nearby going through similar things, people who'd had the surgery, people fighting illnesses alone. I visited them. A retired teacher, a single mom, a college kid abandoned after coming out. Strangers, yet each one made me feel less invisible, less forgotten. For the first time, I thought, maybe I could get through this. The next morning, I was wheeled into the operating room. Riley squeezed my hand. You've got this, and you've got me, that's enough. Counting backward from 10, I reached 7 before everything faded. When I woke, blurry-eyed, groggy, wrapped in bandages, the first voice I heard wasn't my parents'. It was Riley's. She was sitting there, smiling. You made it. Tumor's gone. You're going to be okay. 3 days later, I was stable enough to move from ICU. My prognosis was good. But that's when my phone lit up with dozens of missed calls. My father, my mother, Alicia, and a single text from Dad, "We need you. Call immediately." After everything, after silence, after abandonment, after their family day post, suddenly they needed me. I stared at the screen, still weak, still hooked to IVs as the endless notifications buzzed. 60 plus missed calls. And that one text, "We need you. Answer now." For days, I had lain in this room, waiting for even a single call from them. Nothing. But now, suddenly, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. With trembling hands, I opened the messages. My father's follow-up: "Your grandfather is in the hospital. Stroke. He's asking for you." The words pierced me. Grandpa Henry, the one person in my family who had never treated me like an afterthought, the one who had always shown up for me. He was asking for me, while I was still recovering from brain surgery they didn't even know about. I pressed the nurse call button. When Jenna appeared, I handed her the phone wordlessly. She read the messages, then gave me a look that was half sympathy, half bitter understanding. "Family emergencies always seem to come when it's convenient for them," she said softly. "I need to see him," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. "Not possible," Dr. Patel told me bluntly when he arrived. "Travel isn't safe for at least 2 weeks, not after a craniotomy. You're at risk for seizures, bleeding, infection. Air travel especially, absolutely not." Boston might as well have been on the moon. I sank back against the pillow, devastated. I couldn't go to him. I couldn't say goodbye. "Hey." "You can call," Riley said firmly, placing my phone back into my hands. "But first, Mara, you need to tell them what happened to you. They don't know. They don't even know you nearly died." So I dialed. My father answered on the first ring, his voice sharp with urgency. "Mara, where the hell have you been? We've been calling for days." Something inside me snapped. My voice came out steady, colder than I expected. "I've been in the hospital. I collapsed at work. They found a brain tumor. I had surgery 4 days ago." Silence, a stunned, heavy silence on the line. Finally, he stammered, "What? Why didn't you tell us?" "The hospital did tell you. You just didn't care enough to follow up. You went to an amusement park instead." He tried to defend himself. "We thought it was just exhaustion. They didn't say tumor." "You didn't think to check back. You didn't call me directly. I woke up alone in a hospital bed, Dad. I went into brain surgery alone." His voice cracked, the first time I'd ever heard it falter. "We should have been there. I'm sorry." Too late, too hollow. "Now tell me about Grandpa," I demanded. He explained haltingly. "Massive stroke, conscious but fading, doctors not optimistic. He's asking for you." "I can't travel," I said flatly. "Doctor's orders, set up a video call." An hour later, my phone rang again. My father fumbled with the camera until it finally angled on Grandpa Henry, frail in a hospital bed, his face thinner but his eyes still sharp. "Mara," he rasped, a weak smile pulling at his lips. "My brave girl." Tears slid down my cheeks. "Hi, Grandpa." Even through his slurred speech, he noticed. "Your head, what happened?" "Just a little surgery," I tried to downplay. "Liar," he whispered with a ghost of humor. "Your dad told me, brain tumor, my girl." His gaze softened, but it cut right through me. "I'm glad you're okay." He gathered his breath, eyes flicking sideways as if he knew the others were standing nearby. "Listen to me, Mara. The lake cabin, it's yours. Already signed." Shock jolted through me. "What?" "Crystal Lake, our place. You take care of it, promise me." "I will," I whispered, sobbing quietly. "One more thing," he said, voice trembling. "Stop running, talk to them, make them hear you, then decide." Before I could answer, exhaustion closed his eyes. The camera shifted. My father's face appeared pale, shaken. "Mara, I didn't realize how serious." "Brain surgery," I interrupted coldly. "Remember." My mother appeared beside him, her hand over her mouth. "Mara, your hair." That was her focus. My shaved incision, not the fact that I almost died, not the fact I went through it alone. My hair. "It'll grow back," I said icily. "Unlike the trust I used to have in you." Then Alicia's face filled the frame, her tone falsely sweet. Mara, if we had known it was that serious, of course we would have come. Don't, I snapped. The hospital called. You knew I was in here. You even tagged me in that photo, family day without the drama, while I was waiting to find out if I had cancer. Alicia's face flushed. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did, I cut her off. You've always been happier when I'm not there. Admit it. A silence. Finally, Dad spoke again, voice subdued. We made a mistake, but we love you. Love isn't words, I said. Love is showing up, and you didn't. I hung up before they could say anything else. For once, I ended the call. That night, for the first time in years, I felt a strange peace. Grandpa was right. Running had only kept me trapped in their shadow. Speaking the truth had freed me. 2 weeks later, against doctor's orders but with Riley by my side, I boarded a train to Boston. I needed to see Grandpa one last time. When I arrived at his hospital room, he smiled through his exhaustion. You came, he whispered. Of course I did, I said, kissing his cheek. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. The next day, my parents and Alicia walked in, stunned to see me there. My mother gasped, Mara, you shouldn't be traveling. Thanks for the concern, I replied dryly. Nice to see you too. Grandpa forced them all to sit down. His voice was weak but commanding. Enough lies, time for truth. And then he said everything I had waited my whole life to hear. You failed, Mara, he told my parents. You showered Alicia with praise and left Mara invisible. You compared, criticized, ignored. You broke her spirit instead of lifting it. My mother tried to argue, but Grandpa cut her off. Love isn't equal if it isn't shown equally. You didn't see her for who she is. You only saw how she wasn't Alicia. Then he turned to my sister. And you accepted it, benefited from it, never once stood up for your sister. Alicia's perfect composure cracked. That's not fair. It's the truth, I said quietly. All my life, I tried to be enough, but no matter what I did, it was never as good as you, and you loved it. They had no response. So I told them everything, every forgotten birthday, every dismissive comment, every time they chose her over me. The words poured out like poison, finally leaving my body. When I was done, the room was silent. My father's face was pale, my mother tearful, Alicia subdued for once in her life. Finally, I stood. I don't need apologies, I don't need excuses, I need change, real change. Until then, don't expect me to need you anymore, because I don't. And then I walked out. Grandpa passed peacefully 3 weeks later, leaving me the lake cabin just as he promised. Standing on that dock months later, watching the sun set over the water, I finally understood what he meant. Family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who actually shows up when you collapse. For me, that wasn't my parents or my sister. It was Riley, who stayed through every appointment. It was Jenna, who reminded me I wasn't alone. It was the strangers I met in the hospital who became my support system. That's what real family is. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or had to build your own version of family from people who actually show up, then you already know how much this story hurts and heals at the same time. Comment below, have you ever been abandoned by the people you thought would always be there? I want to hear your story. And if this hit you the way it hit me, don't forget to tap that like button, subscribe for more stories that pull back the curtain on what family really means, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded. Family isn't always blood, it's who proves they care.